Hello, everybody. Hi, kids. Everybody sitting comfortably. Yeah, welcome back. Chapter and Curse. We're still doing this book, Steven Erikson, Malazan Book of the Fallen, book 1 of the 10 big books, Gardens of the Moon, and we're on chapter 4. And just to repeat what we've said before, thanks very much, everybody, for all the comments. Keep them coming. We'll keep responding to them. But just to remind you guys, when we last left off, our dear friend Perrin had just been stabbed in a dark alleyway in the newly conquered city of Pale. And we ended with that sort of anticlimactic moment. And now we go into chapter 4, which is the last of the first 4 chapters and the last chapter of the first book, as it's described inside the contents of the novel. And I'll try, if I can, keep us chronologically dealing with the individual scenes and get your guys' views and comments. As usual, I'm joined by the usual crew, Alistair, Adil, and Gareth. Alistair is using his real name today, but you may know him as Doc Kevlar. So guys, we start off with the first scene of the novel, which is the main proponents of the bridge burners and Tattersall all sitting in Tattersall's chambers, scheming and planning. And we learn of one of the bridge burners who we've heard of before, somebody called Fiddler, who seems to have some kind of natural magical talent. But they're basically all discussing what's happening with our dear friend and puppet, dear old Hairlock, who's off on a mission. And they basically trying to explain themselves through their leader, Whiskey Jack, as to what they're doing. The scene to me was there was quite a lot of exposition. It seemed to me that finally there was, we were getting some answers. Adil in a previous chapter described Tattersall as the point of view through which we see the world. And if that's correct, then at least this is an example of the bridge burner sitting us down and talking us through some of the things, some of the plans that are afoot. This scene where they're all sitting around the table before they're eventually called out when Fiddler has some kind of premonition that something has gone wrong. What are your guys' impressions of it? If I can ask it as broadly as that.
Gareth.
Yeah, well, I mean, no, like you say, Rob. I think it was quite a bit of an exposition dump. But I found it quite useful in sort of like consolidating a little bit of the stuff that had gone on, in terms of who's allied with who and sort of just who's possessed by who and that sort of thing, which I kind of feel like I need to just do a little diagram or something, actually, just to say, like, okay, this is Perrin. He, who does he work for? Is he a goodie? Is he a baddie? What does that even mean? So this, I like this opening scene, and it was pretty cool because they gave a little bit more insight into, and at the same time not really any more insight into the Warrens, just maybe sort of like broadened our knowledge base of what they kind of are. But no, I liked the scene.
And you guys?
Adil?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was probably one of my favorite scenes. Just I enjoy that the sort of talking to each other and then jumping around, and I've also enjoyed, as you say, like just paying off some of the things that we'd already been thinking about in the last couple of chapters. So I did enjoy that, and I thought that it was a good platform for the sort of what's to come. And it did. I mean, for a little bit in that sort of initial scene, it was a bit jarring, right? Because when Perrin dies at the end of the previous chapter, you sort of go like, okay, shucks, like, is he really gone? Like, what's happening? So you're kind of wondering what's happening, and they've now cut to something completely different, and almost slowing down and kind of reiterating some things that we know, but also talking about some things that we might not have quite figured out yet.
Yeah.
That's cool. I like the pace. I think the pace to me was a bit more settled.
Yeah.
Wasn't quite as frenetic or as frantic as the first first three that I've read. Yeah, I like that. It settled down a bit. I didn't feel as overwhelmed because even though there's lots of people in the room and there's lots of conversation going on, I didn't feel lost in this one, and I enjoyed that. But I was just a bit confused though because they're talking about the different Warrens, and that how he's almost breaking through the Warrens and messing with chaos.
That's what I wanted to talk about exactly.
Yeah, but now when is he physically in the Warren though? Is it his spirit or is it actually that little Pinocchio puppety thing?
Yeah, no, it's the puppety thing. It's they're talking about, as I understood it, they're talking about Hairlock, and the point they're making is Hairlock's their sort of spy, and he's traveling the Warrens, but he's not traveling the Warrens in the conventional sense. If you think of the Warrens as tunnels, he's basically boring between them. And the description of it is that's made up of chaos, the area between the Warrens.
Yeah.
So he's effectively making holes in the Warrens, which I think somebody like QuickBen says, no good can come of that at the end of the day. And they say he's basically got two missions. The one is to find out who wants them all dead.
Yeah.
And the other is to find out who's controlling or manipulating this crazy assassin. Sorry.
Yeah, but they're not 100% sure though, are they? At this stage, of what's going on? They just know that something's gone awry. I mean, at this stage, they don't even really know what's happened to Parent. They just know that there's some sort of there's just some sort of chaos coming in. Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was good.
Yeah, there is some explanation regarding specifically the so-called Warren of Shadow, because Tattersall, she says, well, there always was a Warren of Shadow. And then QuickBen corrects her and says, no, that's just that's a fake realm, basically. The real Warren of Shadow was originally ruled over by somebody called a Taist Edur, which is a race which he says is linked to the Taist Andi. So he gives that background, and I think it's in this chapter where she basically looks at him and thinks, hang on a second. She says something like, I should know you. You're too powerful for me not to know you.
QuickBen now she's talking to.
Talking to QuickBen, yeah.
And then they also say something about like him being a claw, but no one is supposed to leave the claws alive, and he just kind of shrugs it off like.
Yeah, that's Kalam. She says, well, aren't you a claw? Weren't you a claw? And he's like, yes, I was. And she says, well, but nobody leaves the claw, and he kind of, whatever. Raising a few more questions.
So that's Kalam. Okay, cool,
yes,
cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Kalam is the assassin.
The assassin,
is the
mage guy.
Yeah.
I think I'm liking Kalam a little bit more now. I'm starting to get into him because I know previously we hadn't heard that much about him, but as we start to hear more about them, I like the speed at which they're giving us some elements of their characters, right? So they're not giving it to us all at once, and even all of the different bridge burners have had a little bit of the shine in this chapter, and I thought that was great. Like the discussions that they were having, the kind of flashbacks, a lot of the stuff that was going on, and was, as Al said, like it's a very nice, comfortable pace, and it almost feels like, I was just thinking just now that it almost feels like if you're running a kind of a marathon, right? That first couple of kilometers are very chaotic and very like, you're not quite settled into a pace yet, and this feels like now we're hitting our pace.
Yeah, I felt that just not only just from the writing, but from the reading as well. Like, because normally I'm a bit apprehensive because obviously my mind's eye, in the back of my mind, I've always got 600 characters and there's all this going on, and I've kind of like learned to, what's that movie? What's it? Dr. Strangelove, How to Love the Bomb, or whatever. That's like I've just
Stop worrying and love the bomb.
That's it. Yeah. So I've stopped worrying now and just love the text. And if I forget, and if it doesn't make sense, I'm sure it'll make sense further down the line. If not, every Tuesday I can always just chat with Rob.
And also, like, I
put on
think
the spots.
accepting the fact that it's our first read through and there's going to be tons of stuff we're going to miss, you know, and it's like, maybe we don't give ourselves such a hard time about getting it all the first time round, you know?
Yeah,
Exactly.
don't worry, I'm here, Gareth.
Thanks.
Exactly.
Thanks, Book Dad.
Yeah.
Book
What
Dad.
I did enjoy was I like the camaraderie between them. Like I like that because you just know those guys have been through so much, you know, that there's no question of who they are amongst themselves. Like they know exactly what roles they play, and I'm not just talking hierarchical either, not like corporals and sergeants, because that doesn't seem to really fit with that's not how they roll. You know, we are survivors. We have done possibly unspeakable things on behalf of the emperor or whoever's in charge of the empire. And I like that. I like that, like this hard-bitten veteran vibe that they give off. You know, that they're all about. You know, there's no fat on them. It's just all lean. It's just like, right, this is what we got to do. You know, and I really enjoy that.
And also, you see like a bit more of sort of Whiskey Jack's humanity, like you say, Al, when they're talking about like sorry in I think later on in that scene they start talking about sorry and that whole thing, and he like admits that she gives him like the creeps, you know, like gets under his skin and makes, you know, and it's like it doesn't sort of fit with the image of this hardened sort of military man who's just so like jaded and been through the wars.
And Tattersal's she's quite intuitive. She sort of works him out. Like he needs just to be a soldier like them. That's what he needs. He needs her just to be somebody that's been through hell and is prepared to like do violence like everyone else. All the other guys are saying no, it's not that. She's much worse than that.
There's more to her than that.
Yeah. But I think also as well, I think it's nice to see Tattersall because she seems conflicted about where her allegiances are going to lie. So I like that as well. She's not jumped into bed with them yet. You know.
I think
but we also know that.
Sorry, Adil.
I was just going to say that in terms of Tattersall, like it was alluded to earlier, and I know that there's a lot of history that we haven't heard about yet, right? So there is. I mean, I think she's been on the wrong side of certain battles before, and so I think maybe she's also a little bit hesitant.
Yeah, she makes one comment. I think it's in this scene where she feels like they're keeping her in the dark, and then she says, "The only death I fear is to die ignorant," which I thought was quite an interesting. You know, it gives you a lot of insight into her character.
Yeah.
And we get you were asking in an earlier chapter, Alistair, you were discussing, you know, the distinction between mages and soldiers. And I think what we get in this chapter is a clear indication that that's a very blurred line. Because we meet Fiddler, who we've actually met before. I don't know if you remember, but in the prologue, Whiskey Jack is accompanied by a young red-headed soldier with a violin.
God damn it, he did it again, boys.
Did it again,
and that's Fiddler, and he's this guy. He's got this kind of strange kind of like ability. He's like they describe him as she describes him as a natural talent.
Is he the one who's like pacing up and down?
He's pacing up and down, and the scene ends with him saying, "There's a knife in the dark." Essentially, he gets a premonition of what's just happened to Perrin. And and they immediately trust that instinct. You know, they talk about him having saved their lives in the tunnels.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, he saw it coming.
Premonitions.
And it goes to what you're saying, Esther. I mean, so the one guy says, "I've had this premonition," and Whiskey Jack immediately leaps into action, and the guys just form up. They don't really need any instruction.
No.
They just go straight into action. It gives that impression. It's showing that they are a seasoned unit without having to say, you know, these guys are a seasoned unit of X number of battles.
But I'm also left with, I think this is the first time that, well, for me, that you actually get to spend a bit of time with them. As I said, it's not so frenetic and not so hectic. But also you get the impression that, like, yes, they must have gone through like thousands of iterations of these guys, you know, for them to survive. And, you know what I mean? Like, there's probably been so many characters that have just been wiped out, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and these are like the best of the best, but not like in a special forces kind of way, but just like the best of the best of the best that have managed to, either by the luck of the gods or the spin of a coin or just sheer happenstance, have managed to survive. And, and these are like the only ones that are left of the original, bridge burners.
I like that, Al. They're not necessarily the best soldiers, just the best at not getting killed.
Yeah.
In this crazy world,
Yeah, where it seems everyone dies like, drops like flies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's probably a good place to leave the scene as they sort of rush out. Because then we segue into a completely different scene, which is Perrin lying on the ground somewhere just on the outside of Hood's gate. And we have this kind of surreal scene where he gets visited by the twins upon. They then leave and he gets visited by what appears to be his Shadow Throne and his hounds. And there's also a visit by somebody on behalf of Hood, the god of death. All the while he's just lying there outside the gates and doesn't ultimately cross the threshold. It was a pretty creepy scene. I mean, I hadn't read it for a while. Reading it again, the description of the gate being made up of sort of writhing, blackened body.
Yeah, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And also, like you said, the surrealism wasn't just it was sort of like revealed in the gentle way he described the surroundings. It wasn't like Perrin woke up in a strange alien land. It was just the way he describes the sand, and you start to realize that things are like a little bit off here,
Yeah.
And it was like, I think memorable for me just because it was so different and so like, this really magical, fantastical stuff. Like, we've heard about the Warrens and we've heard about all these other things, but to see it and just how like weird it is was pretty cool. I enjoyed it, and I'm like really excited to see some of these other sort of like outside the sort of physical realm places that we might visit in the series.
Would he be in a Warren now?
I'm not sure. He certainly. I mean, Hood is the god of death, and I'm not sure whether death is a Warren. It's definitely a place, because the dead pass through the gate clearly.
Because once you go in, there's no coming out, because that's what the guy says. Once you're in, you're in.
Yeah.
But like, I think I might be misremembering, but it was almost, I think, in the first couple of paragraphs where he says it's not how he expected it to look, or it's not like he's seen it before or something. Which I thought, okay, well, then that's weird. Then how has he seen it before? And then obviously it's the writhing bodies and the stuff like that. So then Shadow Throne.
Shadow Throne is one of these two deities we've been seeing. He's one of the two that possessed Sorry in the second chapter. First chapter.
And we assume still possesses Sorry to this day. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's Shadow Throne, and the other one is Cotillion.
Cotillion.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
But they called Shadow Throne something else in that scene as well.
Amanas or Amanas.
Yes. Okay. Cool.
But is Shadow Throne a lackey of Hood?
No.
Or subservient to Hood, or just like a completely separate entity?
No. He's described. They're described as ascendants in the course of this chapter.
Sorry, you broke up there. Say that a bit.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Ascendants.
Ascendants, yeah, that's it. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think ascendants is best explained in role-playing game terms. The old versions of D&D where you got to 35th level and you slew Thor in single combat, and that you achieved godhood by leveling up essentially.
Wow.
And so ascendants are sort of gods in the making, basically.
Okay.
As opposed to elder gods who have been around for a long time.
And
because that's what got me thinking. Sorry to cut you off, Gareth.
No.
Because that's what got me thinking if he was in a Warren or it was actually Hood's realm. Because then, like, why would he be allowed to walk around Hood's realm, or why would any of them be allowed to walk around Hood's realm without him coming out and saying, "Wait, on your bike, get out of here," type thing.
Yeah, we'll probably find out more about the attitude of Hood as we go on, but he yeah, I mean, I get a sense that between Upon on the one hand and Shadow Throne on the other, they're kind of trying to lay claim to this, to influencing Perrin.
Mm.
Yeah, it was great also just to see the Opon, you know, like personified like that, as this pair of twins that are just sort of like, you know, off in that weird way that twins in movies and things can sometimes be.
Yeah, a bit creepy. Yeah,
yeah, a little shining.
But Perrin's like, he's not even like really that fussed. He's not lying there screaming in terror or like, oh my god, ah. He's just like, yeah, okay, how's it? You know, what are you up to? And this one's doing this, and he didn't seem particularly perturbed.
Yeah, exactly. That's that cheekiness that Rob picked up in the first couple of chapters, right? It's still there, even though he's dead.
Yeah, even though he's dead. Yeah.
And he wants to take on the gods and the ascendants, and he's like,
because he starts giving them a bit of this, and you know.
No, you need all you need to know about Perrin when like this vicious hound of shadow arrives. He finds himself just snarling at them and baring his teeth. You know.
Yeah. And it's not that he was like ignorant, right? Because he actually he kind of worked out, oh, that must be who took out that whole town that I saw when I was younger.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, so he knows what they can do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like him. He's got balls for a dead man.
There is one thing that happens which I honestly hadn't noticed before, and when upon the twins, the weirdos basically decide that to spare him essentially, and then they say, oh well, we're going to take another life, or words to that effect.
Yeah.
It's a bit ominous as well. I hadn't even read that properly. They basically say, well, we're going to spare you, but unfortunately someone else is going to have to go now in your place.
And Perrin doesn't protest that.
No.
See, cheeky.
Yeah,
man. And do they don't sort of allude to who it would be, or if no?
Okay. You've got to read books.
I'm sure that won't come up again.
Yeah. And then
it's not a seed for some future demise. Yeah, but you know what? I mean, the body count.
There's a reference to his sword, just a sort of throwaway line, and he mentions the fact that they look at his sword and say, oh, like such an appropriate name, and he'd chosen the name Chance for that sword. And not much more is said of it at that point.
Is this Perrin's sword now? Or...
Yeah, okay. Perrin's sword. We haven't seen any backstory as to regarding the sword or anything. It's just mentioned.
I mean, the whole chance and the spinning coin metaphor is like extremely prevalent throughout. To the it's like pretty on the nose a little bit.
They
really do hit you on the head with it quite hard. I think.
It gets a bit much, actually, I thought, because it's like, again, the coin. I mean, I've got it already. He does it like several times.
Yeah, the coin and the howling of hounds.
Yeah.
And then the net result is Perrin comes to in an alleyway, being tended to by some of the bridge burners.
What I did like is that I don't think the bridge burners warmed to him. I mean, obviously, he'd only been there for literally 10 seconds before he died. But what I did pick up was that when they came out and they saw him, like immediately they were like, fuck, he's one of us. Yeah. Regardless, even if we didn't know him, there was almost like that, oh, he's a bridge burner and someone's done this to him. So we're going to have to sort this shit out right now. You know, and they think he's dead.
Yeah.
And you can
I
see
think by rights he should be.
Yeah, well, technically. Yeah, so I like that. I like that sort of like instant allegiance, like, okay, you might be an officer, or we don't even know you, but if you've taken the mantle of a bridge burner, then you're one of us. We might not show it to you, you have to earn it, but I like that. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. So he comes round, and then we move into another little scene, one of those little vignette scenes that I really enjoy in Erikson's writing, almost kind of Shakespearean comic relief feel to it, which is just these guards grousing at the gate.
I like that. Yeah.
Shift change, just causing trouble with each other. Different
I like
personalities.
And the one is just like so fed up with the other one, just like overspending, hearing the sound of his voice. He just not into it at all.
I like that.
There was something about these couple of chapters that really reminded me of some of the Discworld stuff. And specifically, like, I love Guards and the City Watch and all that stuff. Like, and so it really did remind me of that. And there were a couple of places where there was almost that kind of comical nature that was starting to come in, right? And it totally put me back in that world.
It's something that Erikson doesn't get enough credit for, in my mind. Is he's actually really good at comedy, and in particular, comedy which breaks terribly dark things. You have violence and pretty nasty stuff going on. And you'll have a scene which is a little bit bizarre, but it's often quite humorous. I mean, this was just a scene between guards, obviously, but how sarcastic the one guard is with the other one is just made me smile, I must say.
No, I did like that. I thought, because you can just see them. I mean, if you've ever stood guard, you'll know what it's like. It's like 14 hours of just sheer monotony, bro. And like you might be guarding something arbitrary, like a toilet complex or like something really cool, like an armory or something. But it's raining, it's cold, your feet are sore, you've heard the song like just in your ear the whole time. I like that. I thought it's just, you can relate to it. It's funny.
And then Kalam arrives and tells them, like, be alert. If you may have to let somebody through. I think he's referring to sorry. He says if there's a
no, because he first says we're going in.
We're bringing a body,
and you're just gonna not say anything. And I like because the old one's like, dude, that's fine by me. We're gonna open the gate and off you go, because he knows how these oaks roll. He knows how the bridge burners roll. He knows they're gonna do whatever they're gonna do, whether he lets them in or not. And then as a parting quip, the guy says, oh, by the way, if you see some young girl, stay out of her way, Yeah. And not for a second does he even think that's odd. He's just like, yep, cool, no worries, bro. In fact, I'm going to leave the gate open and you and I are going to take a little walk.
Yeah, I love that line. Cool. So he says that she's in the 9th and she might be thirsty for blood.
Yeah.
That pretty much sums her up.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, and that little scene, it's just quick. It's just basically a kind of a linking scene because they're actually guarding the compound. I think where Tattersall's room is, because we go back to Tattersall doing Doc Kevlar's favorite thing, which is a reading from the deck of dragons.
Yeah,
and it's quite a small scene. I think the only other character with her is Quickben, or he arrives while she's doing it, but she's looking at the cards and she comes across this card which she describes as the Mason of High House Death, or Master of Barrows, and then the Knight of High House Dark, and then a clash between High House Dark and Shadow, and it's once again it's this kind of obscure kind of divination language that's being used.
But it does. I did get a better sense of it this time. Than the other times. The other times just felt like a bit haphazard. But this time she sat down and she had a spiral. She mapped everything out, and then she saw that, the ascendant card and the descendant card were.
It definitely felt like easier to visualize this one a little bit. You know, like you say.
The two cards were against each other, and so she knew. She was relieved. She's like, oh, okay, so this is what this means. This is now there's a confrontation between this house and this house. Yeah. But then she's still unsure whether the barrow is for her. She's not sure what that portends to, but I like that.
And when they talked about a barrow, were they actually talking about a wheelbarrow? I mean, what does a barrow mean? Because it seems to be something bigger.
It's a burial mound.
Yeah, it's like it's an old term for a burial mound. Yeah,
gotcha.
So not necessarily a barrow in the term. It wouldn't necessarily be like a grave. A grave. A barrow would be something where you'd be entombed and they build over you. You'd find like a king's remains in a barrow,
right?
Things like that, or lots of stone and turf on top of it, the barrow mounds. Yeah.
I just thought wheelbarrow and just carried on reading. I'm sure it'll make sense in the next book.
Well, I mean, you'll miss the very Eriksonian moment in a few scenes' time that I can't wait to dig into. But let's leave it there for the moment.
But I do think, Gareth, I'm sure there's been a fair number of bridge burners that have been buried in wheelbarrows over the years. I can imagine that's happened often.
For sure.
After battles, they're just like loading them up like turnips.
I mean, anyone else got any comments on that particular scene before we move on to the rooftops?
What?
No, just the
deck
of dragons.
Because then they call for the medic, and then another two characters appear. I call them Block and Chisel in my head, but it's Mallet and I've forgotten the other character's name.
Yeah, no, Mallet and Hedge, I think.
Mallet and Hedge, that's it. Yeah, are they? They're obviously part of the bridge burners.
They are. Mallet's the healer.
That's it. Yeah. Okay, that was it.
And Hedge is I think. Well, we'll see what Hedge is when we get further in.
Yeah.
But we go to this rooftop scene in Pale, and we have this discussion between Whiskey Jack and Fiddler on the roof.
Pardon the pun, yeah.
But I mean, this was very on the nose for me, and I didn't even appreciate it in early reads. But we've just literally seen a deck of dragons reading where she's turned over a card called the Mason of High House Death, Master of Barrows, and we have a discussion between Fiddler and Whiskey Jack, where they're both basically saying they were both stonecutters.
No, I didn't get that.
Yeah, I got that. But then when the one said it, I was like, okay, so this is what we're talking about. And then the other one was like, I also was a stoic. And I'm like, okay, now I'm confused.
That's what I meant by a very on-the-nose Eriksonian moment. So you were a stonecutter. But so were you. So we learned that both Fiddler and Whiskey Jack were brought up in the profession of stonecutting, masonry. And then, did anyone else pick that drama up?
No, I didn't get that.
It suggests, I think, that the card representing the Mason of High House Death is either Fiddler or Whiskey Jack, or represents one of them, or both. I don't know.
I mean, if we were to take bets at this point, it's
I'm going with Whiskey Jack. Yep.
Oh, yeah. My money's on Whiskey Jack for sure.
Yeah, I like him. He's my favorite character so far.
Yeah,
he reminds me. I'm just watching The Boys at the moment for the first time, and he gives me strong butcher vibes.
Yeah, yeah, but he doesn't swear half as much though.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, no, I like Whiskey Jack.
Adil, if you were gonna make the HBO multi-year series of this book, who you got playing Whiskey Jack?
Oof. Sure, that's a toughie. Oh.
Shall I get back to you?
Yeah, you're gonna have to get back to me on that one. But I was immediately thinking old Wolverine for some reason. Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not a bad option.
That's a good choice. I was going to say like a younger Gary Oldman.
Oof.
Yeah, he could be good. Or Matthew McConaughey. All right. Bridge burners.
He can do Parrot. McConaughey can do Parrot.
Yeah.
Oh yes, definitely strong Parrot.
Parent's going to be someone like what's that dude who plays Loki?
Oh yeah,
Tom Hiddleston.
Tom Hiddleston,
yeah, someone like that, I think.
I've definitely got Don Cheadle booked for Quick Ben.
Oh, amazing! Absolutely amazing.
But then who would play puppets?
Don Cheadle and Quick Ben, Idris Elba as Kalam.
Oh wow,
that's a powerhouse.
Yeah.
Couple right there. That's amazing.
No,
now we just need to figure out where Rowan Atkinson fits into the whole situation, and then we'll be good to go.
Well, we know Krupp's in the next chapter, so let's just wait.
Yeah.
So on the rooftop, they're joined by Dujek One Arm, the commander in chief again, and he and Whiskey Jack have a discussion. And basically, they're talking about that the bridge burners are going on a mission to Darugistan, which is the city to the south, the last free city. And we find out that Dujek says to Whiskey Jack, once you guys are, if you survive Darugistan, you're free to walk, basically to effectively just go AWOL. Did anyone find that odd?
I did, and I kind of get the impression that the what's his name, the Fist guy. Dujek, Dujek. I think he knows there's more. I think he knows more than he's letting on, and I think he's obviously been through the shit with these guys as well, and he obviously, I think, emotionally owes them a debt, and I think he's willing to just say, dudes, you know, if you go, you go. I've got no qualms about that. I'm not gonna. You know, I maybe won't hunt you down, but that doesn't go necessarily for the rest of the army. You know, maybe that would be a different story. But yeah, I think he's not letting on. But then again, you see, it might not necessarily be something as sinister as you think it is. It might just be orders. He's been given orders that they have to go and do this, and he might not necessarily agree with the orders because he's still an underling to someone. So he might not see the bigger picture. But I just got them. Yeah, but I think he gets. I don't think he sees the big picture, but I do think he sees enough to know that calamity is coming down the pipeline for just about everyone. That's what I took from that.
Why wouldn't he let them walk now, though? So I mean, if that was the case, right?
Because Darugistan needs their help.
I think he still sees I wouldn't say the glory of the empire, but I still think he has a part to play in it. He wants to play his part, and he wants to do what he needs to do. You know, to spread Malazan around the world, you know. And I think that's why he needs them to go and do what they need to do. Because at the end of the day, there might be all the scheming and stuff going on, but they're still soldiers. You know, they still have to do their job. And I think that's what the impression I got from that. But I did laugh, though, because it was almost like they do this a lot, though. Like, it's like Gotham with Batman. They're like always standing on high places, looking down, brooding.
Yes, brooding menacingly.
Menacingly into the distance. You know, I did laugh at that.
It was interesting also that so they talked a little bit, I think we mentioned it in a previous episode, but the interaction between Whiskey Jack and Dujek, like, you know, that they had swapped roles and that they were in, and I thought I loved that they explained that a little bit more in this chapter.
Yes, I've forgotten that,
Yeah, because, you know, we talked previously about how Whiskey Jack had been a commander and he had you know, and now he's just got a little squad. And I guess that, you know, he feels he owes him something.
He says as well, Dujek says, I'm under pressure to disband the bridge burners. I assume that's political pressure.
Yeah, and I mean once you know they've taken control of Darugistan, I mean, will there be any need for bridge burners after that? Who's there left for them to take over?
Yeah.
But so I get the impression that the bridge burners are they're almost like reconnaissance in a way. Like, do they go in and soften up the city, or because we don't actually see what they do so far? I haven't seen what they do. It's mentioned in the first one when they're in is it in that first city in
Pale?
Are they in Pale in the first chapter? And the stuff going on down in the city with the mages.
Oh, the prologue.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, are they combat soldiers, or are they like, do they go in and destroy things, or are they purely just sappers digging tunnels and collapsing city walls? And
I think in general, bridge burners, and as the name suggests, are sappers. But I think they do all sorts of other things as well. I mean, I think. Yeah, I think that as a unit, when there were a lot of them, they were sort of military engineers, effectively. But now that they're sort of reduced to one squad, I'm not sure they really have any specific role.
I think they just do what needs to get done.
Yeah.
No matter how awful it is, that's what it sounds like.
But we know that they're doing some kind of covert operation in Darugistan.
And then brooding on the rooftops, while brooding and sidling,
looking pensive.
Looking
Oh,
pensive, yeah.
and Dujek does tell Whiskey Jack that Perrin is going to take control of the squad, not just for this operation, but indefinitely.
Hmm.
And once again, you know,
The guy gets himself assassinated in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, he sounds perfect for you guys.
Yeah. It'd be great. He got better.
He did. Yeah. Yeah.
Not dead yet.
I hear a couple of, I mean, I've seen online quite a few people complaining about this phenomenon in Erikson's books of characters not really ever dying. I mean,
The opposite of Martin.
yeah, the opposite of Martin. Well, they do die, but it's never final, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and it seems that Perrin either he was completely arrogant or he knew that there was a way to potentially talk your way out of it or, strike up some kind of deal with the devil, proverbial devil, so to speak.
Mm.
You know, it felt like he'd even been there before.
Mm.
So we cut back from this rooftop scene back to Tattersall's quarters, where we spend a lot of this chapter and a lot of this chapter in her point of view. And she's got Quick Ben with her and Kalam, and Quick Ben's busy trying to stay in contact with Hairlock, who's on this Warren hopping mission. And this is the scene where what you were referring to, Al, where Mallet, the healer, comes in and he's reporting on Perrin's condition.
Mm.
And he says something interesting about healing, which is quite, I think, philosophically interesting. He says, well, the guy's wounds are healing, but they're healing too fast. And his psyche is not keeping up with it. And this is not good for him in the long run.
Mm.
Which is quite an interesting psychological approach, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because there was mention of the scars as well. It's almost like the healer is not just necessarily a physical healer in terms of just, sewing, suturing wounds and putting on bandages. It seems because there's a bit of magic to it as well.
Yeah.
So I got that impression.
Yeah, it's interesting. You never think about like the psychological impacts of being flung around by a monster and then having all your bones broken and mended instantly like that. It's crazy stuff that these people go through regularly, and it's like, what does that do to you?
Yeah, like in real life, like if you were a first level adventurer, you'd be out at the end of it. You'd be like
traumatized up the wazoo.
I'm out of here, bro. You
No.
keep your gold. Cheers.
Yeah, it's mad.
And I mean, we sort of at this point the chapter cuts from the scene in Tattersall's room, and we're going back and forth to the rooftops, and we get that last scene when they're about to climb onto those animals' calls, those big insect things, and head off to the Ridgestan. And they're all sort of getting. You can see the rest of the bridge burners apparently trying to have a go at Sorry, and she just doesn't seem to care. And then you get that flashback scene of Whiskey Jack where he remembers how she dealt with prisoners in the past. And there's quite a terrible scene where he describes how she was basically getting to work on these prisoners.
Is this Sorry now? Sorry.
Where Sorry was basically torturing these prisoners to the point where Kalam came and basically ended them. And Whiskey Jack describes in sort of fairly horrifying terms the look of relief on their faces when Callum killed them, and how he's clearly very freaked out by Sorry.
Because he says, he just wants nothing but for her to be dead and like not his problem anymore. Because he knows that if she's not, then he has to deal with this somehow.
Yeah.
I think that line was really cool, and just and then came the moment that still twisted Whiskey Jack's heart. In their last frothing words, the mercenaries had blessed Kalam.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which tells you how gruesome the alternative was.
But I must say though, that scene started pretty cool because then the Fisk dude points out into the horizon, eastern horizon, and then there's what are they called?
Qualls.
Yeah.
Qualls come in. And I just heard like Fortunate Son. Yeah,
it did have that funny kind of Nam feel.
that Nam feel, like these choppers are coming in.
Yeah.
You know, and they're like they're landing on the roof. You know, and then he asked the driver, the pilot, who they haven't worked out if they're human or some sort of insectoid.
These are the Moran. Yeah.
Yeah, those are cool, man. I like those. You could just imagine them with like black visors.
Yeah.
You know, you can't see in, you know.
No one's sure whether they're actually humanoid or insect.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. But then he asked the guy, hey, do you remember a guy with one arm? Is he still alive? And the guy just stares at him. Or even if it is a guy, I don't know. Just this creature just stares at him.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. He asks about some other Moranth guy.
Yeah.
As if obviously makes the point this is not his first dealing with them.
No, because he asked specifically for him. He says, "Yeah, have you seen this guy?" It's like a little line, but I just thought something to that more than meets the eye. But yeah, I did laugh though. But I think this description it was. If you hadn't mentioned Vietnam last episode about how he read the books and he analyzed the speech between soldiers, I would never have. But now that you've said it, I look at it through that light, and as soon as those quarrels came in, I was just like, yeah, that's it. Flight to the Valkyrie, here we go.
Through the sunset or sunrise, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's clever though.
And I can't remember if we actually see them take off, but we then go and then so Erikson starts to flex his point of view muscles now, and we get this description of the alleys and shanty town back streets of Pale through the eyes and point of view of a dog now. Not any dog, but the one numbered 7 amongst the Hounds of Shadow, known as Gear. This is potentially my favorite descriptive scene in the chapter. Like having the sort of scene of the city described from the point of view of a hound. I just enjoyed it. And he's clearly hunting for hairlock.
Yeah, but he's in Pale though, which struck me as odd then. But I mean, yeah. But it's nice.
Why? Oh?
No, because I thought Hairlock was running around the Warrens, which I presume are not, which are metaphysical in a sense, where he knows more than he's letting on, and he's not actually in Pale, which I think is just an amazing name for a city. Pale, it's just great.
Yeah, I think Gear is an excellent name for a hound.
Gear, I like that.
And it's the first sort of concrete thing we get about these Hounds of Shadow. They're described in kind of almost he's almost prosaic, almost like a real dog. Just very huge.
Yeah, it's like a pony-sized thing. But then, is that where it with the guards? Is that when the guards encounter? I was got a bit sad about that.
Yeah. And they I like this. I like the way the guards are all trying to bicker, and the one guard just keeps saying, "Look at that dog," and they keep going, ignoring him. And he keeps saying, "Look at that dog."
I remember that line. Yeah,
so good.
I remember that line because it's like, look at that dog, and then the other guy's talking. He's like, "Look at that dog," and then he gets the point, and then of course it's
too late.
It's all over then.
And for the final scene, we go right back into Talisail's point of view when she wakes up. Because this ridiculous puppet comes running in, hides in a box and says, "There's a hound after me, you must destroy it," or something like that.
Your favorite, El. Your favorite. Pinocchio, baby.
Dude, just like I know. Like I'm in the scene and I'm there and I'm all, and it's like, wee! Just like it just pulls me out of it completely. I can always hear like his little it's like little legs, like sound like castanets as it runs.
Click, click, click.
And he's definitely got that helium voice, that really high pitched, tiny, squeaky little voice.
He's a real boy.
Exactly.
It's a real hound. It pulls me out every time. Like running through the Warrens, I just see this little Pinocchio. It's like, no, bro, you could have done anything else.
But there's like a lot of comedy and a lot of like silliness in this chapter, I feel, compared to like all the chapters that have come before it. Like the guards are more like facetious and sarcastic, and there's a lot more of like those sorts of moments.
Was it you said it, Adil, that it almost feels like Terry Pratchett, that guard scene.
Yeah, it does. And then, and even, yeah, we'll talk more about that in the next chapter. But I think that I do like that the way that they went back to Tadasel here, and to the point we made earlier about her being like the main, in my opinion, like that's the main thread, right? And so keep coming back to her, and I think that ending this chapter there. But Hairlock, I mean, I'm still trying to work out his game, right? Because I think that it's kind of he alludes to the fact that he's trying to mislead Quick Ben, and that Quick Ben thinks that he's controlling him, but actually he's not, and so he's got this complex, like which we talked about before. But he's definitely got like a, you know, he thinks he's above everybody and superior to everybody.
Yeah.
But we're not quite sure yet whether that's the case or not, right? I mean, so far we've seen that he's survived and he's managed to evade capture and all of that, but we kind of don't know what he's doing in those in between times. And then he just jumps into the box.
He arrives, jumps into a room, jumps into a box, and says, "Yeah, there's a hound coming. You must deal with it."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly what Adil says, because you think, like, you don't know how good this dude is, and then he can't be that good because he led a hound not only like into his warren, like straight to him, like back on in Pale. So he's obviously not that good at all.
But he's also dabbling in
the
what they describe as chaos magic, which can't be that good for him.
And then they also say it can't be good for any of them.
Yeah. Well, because it's destroying the warrens essentially by destroying the fabric of the warren by sort of nipping between them. I think about it.
But he obviously knows this
as blood vessels.
And I mean, I'm guessing this is not something that any sorcerer is able to do.
No, I would think not.
So you
because
can't
they all
jump
seem
between
to be tied
warrens.
to specific warrens.
Okay, cool. Right.
And anyway,
so it feels like they're talking about some connective tissue or some kind of something that's keeping it together, which gives me a little bit of that like metaverse kind of feel, right? So like the across the metaverse sort of thing, and you're jumping from one to the other.
And he's doing that to be evasive, so that Taishan can't get his trail, right?
That's what he. That's
so
what,
I'm just
that's
saying, getting it straightened out in my own head. Just checking everyone's motivations, you know.
But he throws Tadasel in the crap by basically drawing the hound towards her. She then uses all her magic, which is air magic. Like the warren is Tyr, Thyr. And she creates all these protective wards, but they don't really seem to do much to this hound.
No.
I like the scene. I love the description of the sort of hound attacking in the room.
I like it before it even gets in. I love that because it hits the side of the building, like the whole building shakes, and then you just hear like, you know, swords and, you know, clang of steel, shrieks, more clangs of steel, and then just silence.
Yeah.
And then it comes up the steps. You know, I like that. And then it comes in the room. Boom. Yeah, it was cool.
And I mean, I can't remember the exact order that things occur, but at one point, Hairlock jumps out of his box and starts attacking the hound. And Tadasel almost feels sorry for the hound because she sort of warns it that Hairlock's trying to steal its soul using this chaos magic. Did I misread
I thought
that?
it was. Did I read that the other way around?
No, that is right. So there was a gray coloring that came over the hound, and then she was saying to the hound, "He's trying to steal your soul.
You better get out of here."
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah, that's very weird.
But not insignificant, I would suggest. And then our man Perrin arrives in his dressing gown or wrapped in a duvet.
It's like the Big Lebowski, like ambles in from next door, like
the dude.
You know, the dude.
and stabs the hound to the point that it's forced to flee through some open magical rend. So his relationship with the hounds is never good.
No, yeah.
I mean, this scene, what did you guys make of the whole, the action of it?
I loved it. I thought it was great. I enjoyed it. As I said, I like the way that the hound came in. I like that she's not. She thinks she's quick enough off the draw, but she's not. She barely gets her wards up, and even then, they're not even strengthened. The hound just milks straight through everything, smashes her into the wall. I like that little dust, dust coming off, plasters coming off, and then Puppet Man, hair shirt, as I'm going to call him from now on. He's like such an asshole.
He is, but he was in life too.
I know, but he's like, you're useless, and I'm going to tell Taishan on you, and blah 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 blah, and like really, she's trying to save your life. You're the one that's caused all this calamity.
And I start to get the impression that he's less of an impressive sorcerer than maybe everyone seems to give him credit for. Because first of all,
exactly what Adil said. Yeah,
it's like sure he died and somehow came back, but he's ended up in a shitty little vulnerable doll. And as soon as there's a threat like the hound, you say, he comes running, hides in a box. It's like, where's this almighty wizard that we keep hearing so much about?
Like he hides in a box. Like that's going to do any good to the hound, who could probably swallow the entire box whole. Yeah. He's just like, it's like a sorcerer's version of being under a blanket.
I think he's certifiably insane. I think that's the issue. I don't think he has any concept of his own power level.
Yeah, that's also true. It could be like Dunning-Kruger. Like he doesn't know how stupid he is.
The puppet was a choice.
Well, I read that chapter again. The puppet wasn't his choice.
Oh, okay.
Oh, they bring it. Yes, that's
they
right.
They brought the puppet to him while he was lying there.
Oh, so that's also a little opportunity for a little fuck you, if Hairlock's getting on their nerves. It's like, it's up to you. We'll put you into
Quick Ben is the guy who brought the puppet.
I'll put you into a doorstop if we feel like it.
Yeah.
A wheel of cheese. Yeah.
Yes. So Quick Ben was the one who brought the puppet. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
They describe it as like an odd-shaped thing sitting on his chest while they perform the ritual. But it's actually just this puppet in a burlap sack.
Amazing.
Click clack.
And then our boy stabs the hound, and we have the end of the chapter. The ominous thing I think about how powerful that hound was, that this hound is numbered 7 amongst the hounds of shadow. I assume that's power levels.
Yeah, one hope so, because just 2 of them decimated an entire army, an entire village, everything, all the livestock, all the horses.
Was that just 2?
Men. That was just 2 hounds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, okay. It wasn't even decimated, Al. It was like completely annihilated, right? Like they were gone. They were just gone.
So that's
the bridge burners in this chapter work that out. They clearly know that was what happened. We don't know exactly how they worked that out, but we know they're kind of suspicious of Shadow Throne and Cotillion, and we know they talk about this in this chapter about there was no realm of shadow until after the emperor dies, and then this realm arrives, and now these guys are heads of this realm, and it's we're not told how the bridge boners know all the stuff. Just they seem to have worked it out.
But I get the impression that Privy, not necessarily. I think they've just worked stuff out over the years. I think they've obviously in their own time put 2 and 2 together. They met with certain people, know certain things. Yeah, I don't know.
They've obviously got immense connections if they can stay that like up to date, and while being in tunnels for 7 years under the wall. It's like
good point. Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, but they are definitely the men about town, or the men with the woman about town.
Yeah,
because people know them, they know people, and people know not to mess with them as well. So
yeah, they have a reputation clearly.
Yeah,
awesome.
And this all winds up effectively book 1 of the book, which consists of a series of 4-chapter books that make up the whole novel. And we're going to now leave the bridge burners temporarily, or we leave Pale definitely. And move elsewhere. So this kind of closes off that portion of the novel.
I think it's quite interesting that it ends as we were saying earlier, a little bit like starting to get a little repetitive, but they sort of go into the spinning coin at the end again, and now it's Tattersail that's hearing the spinning coin, and but also interesting that she was wondering how he actually managed to stab the hound at all, and they kind of intimate that it was Opon again that intervened, right?
Well, I mean, he stabs it with the sword that's referred to by Opon when he's lying at the gate. Which is the sword named Chance. I suspect the sword is another metaphor for chance, like the spinning coin.
And then she says, how could you have pierced the hound's magic, your sword? And then she's sort of wondering, and he says, just lucky, I suppose.
Natural 20, baby, is what he says.
It'll do it every time. But it's almost like he's been blessed or cursed, whatever, one of the two. Because I mean, he's obviously he was literally an hour or two ago he was dead. Suffered 2 major stab wounds, one under the heart, into the heart, one through the side, which would have killed him eventually. And now he's coming through in his gown and his slippers and the sword, and he's dispatching these fearsome beasts.
It's a very kind of almost like twee movie trope, when the slow motion opening of the blanket to reveal the sword and then stab the hound.
But it was good though. I'm glad Perrin's around.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
It's a great character.
And we say goodbye to them. So the chapter overall, guys, where does it rest?
I enjoyed it. I think in terms of wow factor, I don't prefer any other chapters. I think they're all equally good. But I think the chapter with the fights with the sorcery and the spells going off and the bits of that floating city falling to the ground, and that was to me was great. I like that. But then it got a bit muddled with the puppets and all this other stuff going on, and this mage might have done this and that. So I like this one. I thought the fourth chapter was great. I liked it because the pacing was great. I could get into it. I didn't feel lost. I kind of knew who people were. There was more character development. You could sort of get behind these guys. You can see the wheels within wheels, and you can see how the bridge burners are just cool as fuck. I really like them. So that was
a hell of a lot going on in this chapter. And you can also, it continues to be cinematic in the same way that the first couple were, and I like you can see it in your mind as you're going through this thing, right? And I think that he gives you a nice balance of like, okay, I'm going to describe something, but I'm going to get into the action. I'm going to so he doesn't dwell too much, I appreciate that because I can get bored quite quickly in reading some of those things. And so I think that it was a nice mix.
Yeah, and as you say, cinematic, because there was a little thing that popped out of me when Perrin hits the wall in this chapter, and he slides down the wall. Most authors would have just said he hit the wall and he slid down the wall, but he adds a little breakaway sentence at the back where he describes his nails going through the moss. And I thought it's almost like the camera pulls up and it's like a different shot, and you see his hand like just going through the wall like that and then collapsing. I thought that was cool, but it is very cinematic, as you said.
Yeah, for sure. Agree, 100%. Yeah, I also enjoyed the sort of like I said earlier, like a lot of the comedy stuff that started to get worked into the scene. Yeah, love this stuff with the soldiers. But it is, like you say, there's a lot going on, and I did feel like getting a little overwhelmed at points with trying to keep track of who's allied with who and who's fighting for what. But
Well, just to make it more confusing, we're gonna go now do with a whole new set of characters, a whole other story.
Maybe I'll be better with this.
Cool.
Oh,
anyway, guys, that's chapter 4. I think that's it. I think we've covered it.